Okay, this is part 2 of 2 videos on how France is controlling and exploiting Africa. So if you want to catch up on what I discussed in the first video, then the link should be below in the subscriptions. Okay, so let's compare and contrast. The Republic of Congo, not the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but the country next door called the Republic of Congo. Is an oil producer. Now, if we compare that with Kuwait, which is also an oil producer in the Middle East, we can see what's going on. Now, the Congo, the Republic of Congo, has reported that it produced 290,000 barrels of oil in 2017. 291,000 barrels of oil per day, and it generated $4 billion in 2017 for 5 million Congolese to live on. Compare that with Kuwait. Kuwait produces 3.5 million barrels of oil per day and generates $54 billion a year for 4 million Kuwaitis to live on. Now, you might be thinking, well, that might seem right, but no. It is said that the Congo has the 6th or the 7th highest reserves of oil in its ground. I think it has reserves of 1.6 billion barrels of oil. Now, why is it only producing 291,000 barrels of oil per day? Why? Or is it producing more of that? Is it producing more oil than is being reported? Some say that the oil that has been pumped out of the ground in the Republic of the Congo is not being metered. I don't know how true that is. Some are saying that the oil is not being audited. So you see what's going on. There are foreign firms that control the oil sector in the Congo, the Republic of Congo. Those oil firms are French. They have the exclusive rights. So the oil is coming out and they're reporting that they're pumping out 291,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, why would you produce such a low amount of oil, given that you have a massive reserve, given that the company that's digging out the oil are specialists at digging out and pumping out oil? It's not as if it's kind of like one man and a dog and they're just having a go, or it's some state oil company that's just corrupt. So something's going on. Macron gave a foolish speech last year, 2019. He stated that Africa's problem was one of civilization. It had a civilization problem. The guy's a joker. Africa has a civilization problem. He says that African women have too many children. They have 6 or 7 children. They have too many. And this is a country that is actually paying French women to have children, or let's be more correct, they're paying the right type of French women to have more children. France is paying, I think it's works out at 14 or 15,000 US dollars per additional child a woman has in France. And France has the cheek to say that Africa has a problem with women having too many children. He points to Niger. But let's look at Niger. Come on, come with me. Let's look at Niger. The guy's a joker. Now, before we look at Niger, let's just add an additional point what he said. He said that Africa suffers from corruption and terrorism. I mean, I can add that Africa also suffers from ethnicity, petty ethnic nationalism. You only had to look at the outbreak of violence at the 2007 election in Kenya. You can look at the violence, the ethnic violence in the new state of South Sudan. You look at the ethnic hatred that's going on in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. That's the backdrop that we're not hearing, that these are ethnic disputes that the West and the invaders in South Africa are able to manipulate. They're using ethnic hatred, xenophobia really well. You know, they're using it as a tool against the best interests of African people. So we can throw that in as well. But France has no right, nor does any of the other criminal nations, to impose their way or their will in Africa.
Fresh clashes have erupted in Juba between forces loyal to the president and those supporting the vice president, renewing.
Hey, pull up that!
They're stirring the pot. They're financing one ethnic group over another. They're funding the armies to suppress the people when they want liberty and freedom. How many African states do you know have manufacturing sites for weapons, for high-tech military gear? How many? All of this stuff is brought in from the criminal powers. They train the people to suppress. They train the army and the police to suppress our people. We saw it most recently in Nigeria. Where do those arms come from? They're certainly not manufactured in Nigeria. You see, look at the case of Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara came to power wanting to change the relationship between the new country that he called Burkina Faso and France. But France was not having any of it. Thomas Sankara was assassinated and Burkina Faso returned to its colonial status. So you see, when we try to change the reality that we're stuck with, someone comes along and imposes their reality on top of us. Now, the fact that Macron singled out Niger is truly egregious if you know anything about Niger. Niger is basically a desert above Chad and above Nigeria. It's up that way, Niger. Now, back in the 1970s, the industrialized world was suffering from the oil shocks coming from the Middle East. And France decided that it was going to switch its main energy source to nuclear power. So in the 1980s, it became a predominantly nuclear-powered society. Well, the majority of its uranium ore came from where? It came from Niger. Niger supplies France with the majority of its uranium ore, which it uses to power its nuclear plants in France. The largest uranium mines are controlled by French companies. The main one is Iver or Aver. Aver controls Niger's biggest export. It goes through a French company. Niger does not get a fair price for its uranium. France has one of the biggest foreign military bases, not in Djibouti, but in Niger. And France says, what does France say? France says Niger is failing to develop because it's got a civilization problem. Niger has a French problem. So if you look at the per capita income, that's all the population in the country, and you then divide all the money it earns in a given year, and you divide that money into all its people, and you get an average, what we call the per capita income. Niger's per capita income is something like $350 per year. That's per person. France's per capita income is 42,000 US dollars per year. So you can see that France's lifestyle is built on the exploitation. It's like that. It's like that. You've got Niger here and you've got France here, and it's basically a vampire relationship, sucking the blood out of the people of Niger and the other African colonies. And Macron has the cheek to say that Niger is not developing. The government is dominated and controlled by the French. The government of Niger can't do anything. If it decided to tear up the contract with Aver and threw them out and decided to bring in another company to get a better price for its uranium ore, the government would be overthrown overnight. No, they would go through regime change. Oh, I'm sorry for laughing. It's just so ridiculous. France sees itself and projects itself around the world as a global power. Why? Because it says it's a colonial power. It has responsibility for 14 African states on the continent, and also it has colonies in the Caribbean. So France pushes out its chest and says, I have a right to be in all the international forums because I'm a big boy. It has a seat, as I say, a permanent seat on the Security Council of the United Nations. A population of, what, 65 million, 70 million? A mid-sized economy, if that. Whereas India, it doesn't have a permanent seat. Mexico, Brazil, Nigeria, South Africa, the list goes on. Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I could go on and on and on. So how is France and Britain, how do they have a place, a permanent seat on the Security Council, and these other nations do not? You see, this is the power. This is the power of having colonies. You can then say you speak for the colonies, and the colonies will vote for France. So if France has an issue, it expects its colonies to vote in France's interest, or else. The relationship between France and Africa is best summed up by a quote from one of France's former presidents. I quote, "Without Africa, France would slide down into a rank of a third world power. End quote. Said Jacques Chirac in 2008. Let me repeat because I don't think you got it. He said, without Africa, France would slide down into the rank of a third world power. End quote. France needs Africa. You cannot have France today as it is today without Africa. The lights wouldn't even turn on without Africa. That is how important Africa is to France. Thank you. You've just watched another video from Warrior for Power, and I'm Sunjata. Do me a big favor and hit the subscription button below. What I'm trying to do is reach 1,000 subscribers, and once I reach that target, I can apply to do live streaming on YouTube. And my aim is to do a daily show as soon as possible. 2 hours a day where you can email in, you can text in, you can phone in, you can interact live, and we can discuss all these issues. And while you're subscribing, turn on the notification bell so you receive the very next video that I upload. Okay, all I have to do now is say thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, peace out.